Hey, Glenn.
What's happening?
Headed home from work.
So what kind of work do you actually have to do in these, your days on the labor force?
I do title reading, like title examiner. So I read deeds and check ownership for related to the Hurricane Sandy, the people who were displaced. So it's a grant program. So I just check that they basically own the property at the time of the storm, so they can get money to rebuild their homes and or reimbursement stuff. So.
How much does a person get percentage-wise of the value of the property, or is it the amount of mortgage?
There's different programs. What I'm working on is, say you had an appraisal done and you have $75,000 worth of damage. They'll hire a contractor and they'll fix your house for that much. Or if you spent your own money, they'll give you back. If you have receipts and stuff like that, they'll give you back what you spent on the construction. They won't pay for the TV that you had or anything like that, but the actual house construction that you did, reconstruction, then they'll pay you back that way.
So that's not a bad plan for people who were displaced.
Right, and a lot of them have to get elevated if they're in the 100-year floodplain, which is kind of funny. Not funny, but...
That means they can't build in the same location?
That's if they were right on the water, then this program is buying out their house because their house was destroyed probably, so they're just nobody can build a house there anymore. So they're just they're buying the house from them, and then they're going to destroy it and helping the people find a new place wherever they want to go. Otherwise, they put them on the houses on stilts that are by the water.
Right.
So they have to elevate, 15, 20 feet or whatever it is. Yeah.
Build on stilts.
Yes. Yeah.
How's personal life going? Everything normal, as far as normal can be?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, as far as normal can be, I'm pretty adaptable, and I try to keep a level head, and not take people for granted. That's my or situations,
Yeah, you're living in the same place.
Yep. Yeah, for now. Just economically,
how's the boy?
He's good, actually. His birthday is on Saturday. He'll be 8 years old, so.
So grade 2 in school?
Yep. He's in second grade. The grade where they teach you how to add so you can count how much money you're going to be making or not making. He's doing now is focusing on money, but I hate because now he wants to pay for everything, which I don't really like that, but, he's focusing, they make him focus on money a lot. Yeah. But well.
Is it raining at your place?
Yep. Pouring.
Supposed to go on all week?
Yeah. At least I think we get a break Friday.
Yeah.
Supposedly.
No flooding?
Not that I can see. Around here, there's no flooding, but...
Where do you go to work? Do you have to go into Manhattan?
No, it's actually on Long Island, east of me, about 15 miles on the south shore.
That's not bad.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
Yeah. Your car is working?
Knock on wood, yeah. Yeah, it's
been raining here all day.
Yeah.
We basically are living kind of a day-to-day existence because the mortgage is due in May. And under normal circumstances, it would just be remortgaged. But one of the girls is not responding. Lynn from Vancouver, David, former wife, is not responding. So we don't know what's basically going to happen, because if she doesn't sign, then Megan is not acceptable on her own to sign for the mortgage, which is about $150,000 on a property valued at about $325 or something. So,
you mean her credit alone isn't good enough?
Hey?
You mean her credit alone isn't good enough? She needs to have
no. That's what she says, anyways. That's what she says. Mind you, you never know what's going on in background on any of these things.
Yeah.
But we'll find out someday in May. And as far as Jennifer is concerned, a legal aid type lawyer had offered her services to kind of guide the refiling of an application for landed immigrant status in Canada for her. Mind you, she was supposed to have come to a decision within 6 weeks of her arrival, and it's now a year plus. And recently, about 2 months ago, the lawyer announced she had to go to a hospital for minor surgery. I guess what they discovered during the minor surgery was major, because she's had to go back for a major operation within 2 weeks of her original surgery. And now we're being told that she's not scheduled to return to work until after the month of May. So they probably discovered some cancer or something.
And who is this?
The lawyer that
Okay.
helping Jennifer refile. She basically got the government to pay us back the $550 deposit that had been put in 2010 when Jennifer arrived in Ogdensburg. And then I refiled it with the $550 that they had sent for the new application. And that's before the lawyer got sick. So we have no idea exactly where things are at this stage of the game.
Yeah.
There seems to be some political activity in Ottawa that may lead the police to charge some senators and maybe even the Prime Minister with covering up a crime on Parliament Hill.
Yeah, which one?
Yeah, which one? I mean, that's the normal job of the police, is to cover up the crimes of the Prime Minister. So something strange is in the wind. They either want a different Prime Minister before the flood, or something else that only they know for certain. I don't know. But there's no doubt that this past winter was designed to put on the ground the amount of water that makes the land unable to receive any more moisture without creating flood-like conditions. So if you add the Loo at the Sioux on top of what's already there,
yeah,
it would be a catastrophe. So, but the Prime Minister in the last 6 or 7 years, has appointed at least 6 of the 9 judges of the Supreme Court. One's retired, and therefore there are only 8. So that means he's appointed 6 of the 8 that can vote on anything. And over the last 2 months, they have denied him everything he's asked for. I think there were about 5 or 6 cases before the Supreme Court on changes to laws and stuff like that he wanted to make. Some about the Senate, the operation of the Senate, others on voting laws, that kind of stuff. And
right.
he's been denied by his own appointees. So that in itself is strange.
Why do you think that is?
Well, there's something that I think is linked to us and the information that we put out about the Loo at the Sioux,
yeah,
and about women, that has become common knowledge within the police and the military and the justice system. Needs to cover its own ass instead of covering the Prime Minister's ass. So we're all kind of sitting on pins and needles wondering what they're going to do.
Oh, before I forget, I made a donation to the feed store.
Recently?
I want to say maybe Monday or Tuesday.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's for $100. So just so you're aware.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll be there at the feed store on Saturday, so they probably will tell me then.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem. I'll try to do that if I can monthly, for as long as I can while I'm working, you know.
Yeah. Well, it will be helpful. Much appreciated.
Is that a month's supply, or is that only Is that about a month's supply, or is that only, how long is that, how long does $100 last?
That will provide us with two bags of each, probably, and that would be about, 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks, somewhere in there. So, much appreciated.
Okay.
Jennifer used to pay monthly fees to the feed store when she first arrived in Ogdensburg before they cut her off unemployment insurance and her own money ran out. And at that time, she was paying about $350 a month. But that was when we had 18 goats. And we're down to 4 now.
Wow.
So 4 goats and about 30 cats or so, along with half a dozen chickens. But there are chickens coming in within the next week or two. Okay. They basically help to feed the cats as well over the winter time.
Right. Yeah.
So I would think that the amount we spend now is more around $200, $225 range at the feed store. We haven't bought any hay, which is usually $100 a month. I haven't bought any since about Christmas, and the animals are on the verge of being able to graze, so there won't be that much during the summer. But
right.
We're basically surviving. Very few people can call, because I've been told I can't take calls from strangers because of Jennifer's problems where they tried to do her in the States. And we've had a couple of incidences dealing with the vehicle on this side, because she, in fact, has offered to testify against the Grey Nuns, and the fabrication, genetic engineering of foundlings in Ogdensburg during the period somewhere between 1865 and 1955, since there is a very good possibility that she was among the 1955 batch that came out of there and was sent on to Western Canada, and then down through a period of time in Montana, and eventually ending up in California. So, yeah, in 1955, we have an article from the New York Times where the nuns are advertising a kind of a come and get it baby sale. I can't call it a sale because they were giving them away. and they had a couple of hundred babies on the fourth floor of the Ford building in Ogdensburg, which they distributed to people with instructions that they were to take them to their local religious leader, who would in fact make a birth certificate for them.
Wow.
But people haven't a clue, most people haven't got a clue that that's basically what's been going on since the year zero. That all of the babies that were made to carry certain genetics, and that those gene pools are basically known today as continents or countries, and that the whole intent was to enlarge the population of the planet from a few million to 7 billion, and be used as a laboratory. And much like rats and guinea pigs, those people were given task orientation genetic pools, and the time for the testing ran out once the total number of people on the planet crossed 7 billion. And now the time has come to destroy 6 billion of those, leaving only those in South America, Australia, and South Africa to continue basically reviewing the archives. And they are told that they will live for 1,000 years. The code, however, states that that may not really end up being the truth, that 50 years or so may be more like it rather than 1,000 years.
Wow.
I've been doing a lot of, more of the detailed analysis of the bigger picture that became clear some years ago. But it's interesting to see how the whole thing was planned. Even the announcement of 6 million died in World War II was more a hint at what was to come. 6 billion people would die in World War III. And they're certainly doing the dance in the Ukraine right now between the Russians and the West to start the ball rolling. So
yeah, I heard it's more like
surprised at anything. It's everything that's going on fits the plan. Even this sterling silver play on the basketball courts in California there.
Right.
The judge is called Silver and the accused is called Sterling. What does that all mean?
Right. And his girlfriend is mixed anyway, black and, Mexican, I think?
Yeah.
He supposedly didn't know that she was black.
I think he's in on it. It's a setup, that he's agreed to play that role, and everything was basically arranged between the owners and the players. I don't know how many people know about it, but it's obvious to me. And the plane thing going from Kuala Lumpur to Australia, coincidentally carrying the number 777, is another episode among the strange things happening at the end times. Perth, Australia is the headquarters for insurance around the Western world, and they made that the center of activity for the search. So 777 happens to be the number on the insurance policies that I had for the car, and also the number on the door of the Ontario Provincial Police Headquarters for the province. And there's no doubt in my mind that the police and the insurance industry play a little game together about, giving tickets that result in a small fine but a large increase in the cost of insurance. Mm-hmm. When Tom was accused of having touched the bumper of the car behind him at the bank in Kempville, right, and leaving the scene of an accident, and there's absolutely no one filed a complaint. No one looked at the vehicle. There's not even a scratch in the dirt on the bumper. And Tom agreed to sign a complaint. Well, he got a ticket for $125. But the Institute ended up with a 4-year bill that totaled $10,000 in added insurance.
Wow.
$2,500 a year. And I can bet that somebody in the police was getting a payoff on that.
Right. Just how they find you.
Yeah. The whole thing is basically a criminal conspiracy, but you know that the media doesn't believe in conspiracies. They've been told in journalism school and university that the word conspiracy only exists in the dictionary, and criminal activity of that kind is only done by freelancers. Governments don't participate in conspiracies, or insurance industry participants don't participate in conspiracies, yet they create them.
Right.
It's all being known as well that if you call Bell or Hydro or the OPP or the government, you never really get satisfaction, because the people assigned to answering the telephone are in fact women who've been planted there for the purpose of culling the information that comes in over the telephone, or at the door, or in the mail. And we sent a letter to the RCMP to that effect, that we understood why they never do their job. It's because the people in charge in government departments and police and hydro and all those places never get to find out what's going on in the world. It's all being culled by a group of people called women. Fifth degree Eastern Star assigned to prevent a democratic system from functioning, not from the top down as they used to do with monarchs until the French Revolution, but rather from the bottom up. Mm-hmm. Much more effective and much easier to hide. And within a short period of time of the RCMP receiving that letter, they announced that they were going to separate the administrative work from the police work by moving all of the police out of headquarters to another building where they would not be in contact on a daily basis with the administrative people. So, what could they be planning for the Prime Minister? Could it be that he might spend Whit Sunday, 50 days after Easter, in jail? It would make sense to me. And it would explain why the Supreme Court is not responding positively to any of his requests.
Right. It's interesting.
Yeah. The Ontario Provincial Police Headquarters in Aurelia, with 777 as an address, is directly in the line of flow from any water that would suddenly come from the Lou at the Sioux. In other words, the first responders' headquarters would be annihilated in the first wave. So maybe the thought of that possibility is causing some people to rethink which side they should be on.
I hope so. Any contact with the cell recently, or is it still?
Well, it's on a kind of semi-regular basis. They're investigating all kinds of things that are going on in Ottawa, including this stuff. And there was a cabinet minister in charge of finance who has been the only minister of finance that Harper has had in all the time he's been prime minister. And he resigned, although the context of his resignation makes little sense, seeing as he orchestrated austerity for the past 6 years and announced that there would be a surplus next year where he could in fact give out some goodies to people just before election time. And then he resigns, 64 years old. The media says to go work in the financial industry and make some quote-unquote real money, and a couple of weeks after his resignation, dies in his apartment in Ottawa, where he basically has his Ottawa headquarters, 64 years of age, some skin irritation disease, but nothing of any seriousness. When he dies, he is given artificial resuscitation by a doctor, female doctor, 30 years old, who just happens to be the Minister of Health, who lives in the apartment above him and his wife. And I don't know, it's being suggested that his heart attack was induced.
Yeah. That's
a deal done between the female doctor and his wife would have caught them, his wife would have caught them in the act. However, it was all prearranged between the two girls, is what I'm getting.
They always go that route, too. It's either, some type of complication of the heart or a drug overdose. That's always the two that they use.
Yeah.
Recently, anyway.
And a guy who was deputy prime minister in the Liberal period of time before these guys took office, back when I was on Parliament Hill, a guy by the name of Herb Gray, he dies. And the cell says that he's the first one in their experience, this particular gang that makes up the 26 investigators today. They said this is the first time that a politician who played a major role in cover-ups more than in direct criminal activity ends up being sentenced without trial to permanent death. And the reason was that he refused to go to the court. And he refused to change his opinions, and they were left with no other sentence than the longest possible, and that's permanent death.
So there's no way that, say, the cell could ever check, say, like Jared and I's history, right? Or prior life, or something like that. They basically
deal with the political and criminal activity of people who have caused the problem in preparation for the day when we leave this universe for the next one. And at that stage of the game, they want everyone who is transferred to the new fifth to know without any doubt how this fourth dimensional universe got into the mess it's in, so that it would not be repeated.
Right.
So I don't think that Gerd and you, for example, would be the cause of the mess we're in.
Right. So does that mean we'll have...
Whatever it is that you may have done would be minor in that context.
So does that mean it'll be different? You know, for example, when you're born here, you don't... The memory of your last night or whatever is kind of lost, right? Like you kind of start fresh.
Yeah.
Does that mean the next one you'll have the memory still? Like you'll start with the memory?
Well, what you do is you show up at the halfway point, which is the court. You are examined over a period of time which to you may feel like months and years, but in fact only takes seconds. And at that stage, creation makes a judgment. And the judgment can be, okay, you can walk and wait with the people waiting to move on, or you've done certain things that are relatively minor but important anyways to cleansing, and you're given an opportunity to go back for a short period of time in the context of millions of years.
Right.
And now, even because we're right at the end, that period has to be much shorter than any other period because there's just no more time left.
Right.
And then move and wait in line. But if what you did caused a major problem, you're basically taken apart, decomposed into the basic genes and set down the food chain. And, going as far back as being a slug, for example, would take millions of years to make it up the food chain. And your return to the fourth dimension, the one we're in, which itself has only a limited time to continue because of the sun decreasing in size as it burns itself to death, and the possibility of galaxies running into each other and all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like forever in waiting with no possibility of advance out of this one. But this guy, Herb Gray, he got the ultimate, which is decomposed, no return, nowhere, no place, no more. Can that person ever be involved with life?
So it's kind of like getting, 20 life sentences or something, right? Like you'll never ever get out of it.
Well, even worse than that, because even with 20 life sentences, you die, and some genetic engineer can make you over again. Whereas permanent death, the pieces are never able to be brought back together again.
So what about like Neanderthal and and Amazons and, you know, all those, the ones that basically made the people that way are responsible too,
more,
right? So,
more like, you know, criminals within Clan Mother society. After the Neanderthalers and before the humans, but based on the values of the day, however, you cannot make crime have the same importance when there was only 1 million people on the planet as there are when there are 6-7 billion people on the planet, and what you do causes war, pestilence, famine, and disease type of thing.
yeah.
But what appears to be worse because of this guy, Herb Gray, is hypocrisy. That seems to be the really killing thing, is covering up the criminal activity that causes war, pestilence, famine, and disease. And I would suggest that most of those people would be in media. And media, the press is only one part of media. Universities of higher learning are media. Anybody that works in, say, archaeology, which don't come out and tell the real story. All of these things are the worst thing, because what they do is create a mindset among people who have no way of knowing better. Nuns and priests and rabbis and would have at the highest level, you know, Mother Superior and everything, the biggest hypocrites of all.
But isn't the root of them still, you know, the creators of them? So would they have like a separate trial? I guess it's for people, you know, the human race, and then
everybody gets a trial of their own, and it's just that everybody goes through the same process, but the end product is different.
Okay.
The water that is in the yard these days is bringing out some ants in the house.
Oh.
And I hate like hell having to kill ants, because they're really just garbage pickers. Right. They don't make a mess of their own. However, when they start coming in too large a number, you have to get rid of them, such as I just got rid of that one.
Well, you can look at it.
Get rid of them, or you don't have any food. They don't know the difference.
Maybe they're being sent to your house so you can send them on to the next life. Maybe somebody that you know.
Well, I have, in fact, probably caused some of that activity. It became clear to me that something was designed into this house that is affecting the animals outside the house, around the house, and those in the house, much in the way of canaries in a mine shaft. You know, cats that have vision problems in one eye, the goats that died from a weakness in their hindquarters and they just collapsed and couldn't get up again and eat. But it also came to mind that it's affecting Jennifer and I with problems that seem to be linked to the nervous system. Neurology would in fact be affected by a magnetic field. And it struck me that there is a magnetic field under every house that has been built for a number of years, and that would have begun when the hydro, which used to be positive and negative 2 pins, had a third pin added, which we call the ground.
Right. The ground.
Now, it has earth in it, and it has round, and basically the concept was if you put a line into the house to bring in electricity and a line out of the house to a ground or a rod is what they called it, into the ground, there's a two-way street there. And any surge or surplus of electricity going to the rod could be used by people with evil intent to create an electromagnet. An electromagnet would then attract iron, especially iron in water, and when the two things come together, the electromagnet in water receives a spark, an explosion occurs.
Yeah.
And that struck me as being exactly what happened on 9/11. That a control condition was built by the owners by making a very large concrete holding tank in which they built the buildings. And that would mean that there is no access to the ground itself, since it's all built inside a concrete building. Each building, we were told at 9/11, was destroyed by 2 airplanes that ran in on the upper floors. Well, we know that you cannot destroy the bottom of a building by having something hit at the 40th floor. And therefore, there had to be a different plan. And after the entire structure was built, if in fact what occurred was someone brought in an explosive device in a van in the parking facilities under the building, and blew it up, it would create kind of a minor damage. But at the period in time when you repaired that minor damage, you could, in fact, fill the walls of the basement with conduits that would lead any water from a fire extinguisher in the building into that location. And if you then sent a charge into a pre-installed electromagnet, you could explode the base. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what looks like happened on 9/11. Steam on the bottom floors disintegrated the base, and the building came crumbling down rather than topple over.
Right. I actually remember seeing a video like
that I would check this house out, and I began to dig, following my instincts as to where such a rod might exist. It's interesting that it's called a rod, Aaron's rod in the Bible, and given later from Aaron, who was Moses' brother, given to Joshua, and when he attacked Jericho, the walls came crumbling down. They put on a little show for a week, 7 times around the wall, and then 7 times on the 7th day, and the whole structure collapsed. Well, the only thing that could make that happen is what I just explained happened at 9/11. By the way, our address is right across from 9/11 here. So once I got the hole dug, and I dug basically by hand all last fall and over the winter when I wasn't cold enough to freeze my hands in 2 minutes, I have now found the rod, followed the wire to the power source, know exactly how it was connected, and like the story of King Arthur and the sword that cannot be pulled out of the ground in that story by all the people who try to do it, but when King Arthur comes by, he can pull it out. Right. Same situation exists here. If the rod is magnetized, you can pull all you want, and you're not going to pull it out. But if somebody shuts off the electromagnet, it's released and can slide out easily. And I suggest that's what we have here. And I've called Hydro, and I've told them that there is evidence here that I have been paying for their rod, keeping it electrified. And they basically are staying away from here with a 10-mile pole. They don't want to come and visit. But the government of Ontario has announced that 3,000 to 4,000 people in this area of Ontario have filed complaints against Hydro for erratic billing over the last few years, where they can't afford to live in their house because the hydro costs more than the house. And hidden in the billing system is unexplainable things. And when you call them up, well, the Ombudsman of the province of Ontario described calling Hydro as trying to catch a greased pig. And I suspect, and I have been given information by the cell that I'm not off the mark, that because this area here was chosen to be Valhalla in the Norse mythology of the Vikings, that what we're seeing is an attempt by Hydro to grab properties by creating phony lien amounts that can be put on properties, making the property a property of Hydro once the people in the houses cannot afford to pay the lien. And you would know all about that because I'm sure you come across liens in the work you're now doing.
Oh, yeah.
So they have started a 9-month investigation. I have told Hydro that if they don't remove the amount of money that they've surcharged on our bill and stop doing what they're doing of putting in magnetic fields around rods that people are made to pay for that create energy and cause them physical harm inside their buildings, that I will launch a class action suit inviting those 3,000 to 4,000 people to join us.
There you go.
On that suit. So right now, ever since I made that clear and had it recorded at Hydro and at the Ontario government, I'm not hearing one word back from anybody.
Sure.
And I believe that almost every building in North America, if not in the Western world, is being built that way, with a ground into the earth that serves a dual purpose. It prevents surcharges from damaging property in the house, but it also creates electromagnetic fields that create problems for the people who actually abide in those premises.
Wasn't it even closer than that? Because, you know, think about how far away each power outlet is from each other. And I think, what is that, 60 to 80 hertz that they run at? And that's a constant field that you're sleeping in, living in, and all of the outlets are just about the height of, you know, where you sit or where your head rests when you're sleeping. It's all very close, you know. Like, yeah, I'm sure that all has an effect as well.
Well, you'll be a key guy in this process if we can get beyond the stage we're at now and into the legal world, because communications and electromagnetic things are going to be a big part of the cell's instructions to people who are leaving this planet and this universe, so that it's not repeated again the next time around.
It'd be my pleasure.
Yeah. And the number of people who have died of heart attacks and of strokes and everything linked to the electrical system of the body, the neurons, and depression and that kind of stuff, all can be enhanced by an electromagnetic field. That means that millions and millions of people have and will die, even though they may not be in the direct line of sight of a flood or a dry flood with radon gas. They are in mortal danger just being alive and living in a magnetic field.
Yeah. Can't escape it here, with power lines and,
Yeah.
It's all right next to your house and going in, so it's right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A magnetometer would be a great device to get our hands on.
Magnetometer. It measures magnetic field? Or?
Yeah. So if you hear of one being made available, that would be a great device to confirm for anybody that has a doubt that the length of life we're living is determined by the electromagnetic force you are obliged to live in. And the interesting thing is the word hydro has the last three letters are rod. A Y, H at the beginning means connected. Y means 2 in 1, which is a male-female for the purpose of self insemination in space, what they're looking for, and all linked to the rod.
You can get some, looks like from $40 to $800, magnet $12,000. Oof. For a magnetometer, compass.
Got to find out who uses them and who would have them, that we could get somebody with a good one to come around.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, right. $565 for electromagnetic field meter. I mean, if you had to read it. So.
Yeah. You need somebody in that field.
In that magnetic field?
in that kind of business.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm being called for supper, so I'm going to have to leave you.
All right.
Thank you again for all you're doing. And,
sure, thank you.
We'll I'm sure, be thanked for the work we're doing at the proper time in the future.
Okay. Okay, tell Jennifer I said hi.
Okay.
All right. Bye for now.